Hey, what's up? Otaku Mike here. Let's talk about Absolute Flash issue number one. This one's interesting. So, Absolute Flash issue number one starts out with Wally, yes, Wally West, running in the middle of the desert, basically trying to figure out what exactly is going on or what has happened to him. And he has a full blown panic attack. We switched back to about a day or two earlier. Wally is basically walking around and in like this little town. He's trying to figure out like what he wants to do because he's very much alone in this town. We find out that Wally and his dad have been moving around quite a bit because his dad is actually part of the military and they move from base to base, town to town. Wally doesn't really have a place to necessarily call his own. He's going back to the base that he is stationed at the moment. They say he's trying to sneak back in, but he kind of just shows up at the front gate. The guards ask him, hey, what are you doing out here? It's past curfew. You're not supposed to be out here. You know that. Who happens to show up but Barry Allen himself? And he's like, hey, whoa, I can vouch for good old Wally, just let him slide this time. He's a kid. But they're like, oh, no, people aren't supposed to be outside with the curfew and whatnot. And Wally and Barry get past the guards and they start to talk. And Barry's kind of just doing like almost like the big brother-esque type of thing, kind of looking after Wally, talking to Wally. And he gets him home. He's like, hey, Wally, you want to see something kind of cool? So Barry actually ends up taking Wally down to the research facility where Barry and Wally's father, who is a general in the army, they are studying some kind of thing. They're working on some science mumbo jumbo and whatnot. And Barry notices that Wally actually is showing a very much interest in what's actually going on. And Wally's actually seems to be picking up things here and there and actually is giving Barry some advice, and Barry's giving Wally advice and stuff like that. But who happens to show up and poo-poo on the party? Well, Wally's dad. And things don't end up so well. They get into an argument. But after the argument, we actually end up jumping in time within the story, or jumping in time in general, because technically the Flash can time travel, sort of. But we end up seeing Wally in the desert where we first saw him at the beginning of this issue, and he thinks his dad is coming to get him because of something that has happened at the facility, and we find out that maybe his dad is actually coming to get him, but we end up finding out a group has come to basically track down Wally, and that is basically the Rogues Gallery of Captain Boomerang, Captain Cold, Trickster, and Golden Glider, and they are chasing after Wally with all they got. This actually gets interspersed with the chase between the Rogues and Wally with actually what happened, I believe, the night before is Wally and his dad basically get into this big, huge argument. And Wally takes off. He takes off and he's like, I can't do this anymore. He goes to look for Barry. He happens to find Barry down in the research facility where they're doing the experiments. And Barry actually has on a Flash costume, and all these energy waves are coming in and out, and he's like, run, 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 Wally, run, run. And that's where things get really interesting because we end up jumping a year forward into the story, and we find out that Barry is actually dead, and Wally might have been the cause of Barry's death. All right, so let's take a look at the internal artwork. Here is your creative team right here. I have to say, I really, really do like the internal artwork in here. I like how they do with the particle effects to show exactly Barry's speed and possibly what the speed force is like and how he goes about dealing with it. One thing I actually really like in this is the when we get to it later on, the representation of speed lines, which are these big thick lines that we have going on in here, and this the colors and whatnot, everything sets the mood. It's just very well done. I feel like very good representation. I feel like of a kid, in the middle of nowhere, having to deal with the fact that he is in the middle of nowhere with nothing really to do, with kind of like an absentee father and stuff. But everything is very well drawn. Everything is very dynamic when it comes to action and stuff like that. I love all the little details within when they're in like the world of the desert or wherever they are. Because I don't remember exactly where they are. But here is the new redesign for Captain Cold and Captain Boomerang, Trickster, and Golden Glider, which I have to say, I really like their redesign that they got going on in this. But yeah, this is where it kind of jumps around and we get to see some of the speed lines, which I really like. Very reminiscent of like anime action speed lines. But yeah, this is a very, very well drawn first issue. And I'm looking forward to actually getting more of this series. So for all intents and purposes, I actually did really enjoy this first issue of Absolute Flash. I'm a big fan of Jeff Lemire and his work. He's the writer of Absolute Flash. I wasn't 100% familiar with the artist until I figured out he actually did do art for several series that I actually did enjoy, specifically some of the Black Hammer spinoffs that Jeff Lemire has created. I got really excited as well to see that Wally is actually the Absolute Flash and not a version of Barry Allen. I feel like Wally kind of gets the short end of the stick when Barry actually came back and took over the role as the main Flash. I also really like that it seems that Barry's anxiety that he has about everything that's going on and his anxiety in general seems to possibly be affecting his powers with the Speed Force. I don't know if it's the Speed Force or not, but that seems to be a pretty cool dynamic that they have going on, and how he is basically being tracked down and hunted by the rogues. That honestly very seemed to me reminiscent to of like like when General Ross was like hunting the Hulk, kind of like, oh, they're hunting the Flash now, with his dad possibly being the like main guy in charge of trying to get this thing back, because if I remember correctly, they wanted to use the experiment to like possibly develop like weapons and stuff. So technically, if the experiment was a success, Wally would technically be a property of the government, maybe? Who knows? That's why they're probably going after him. But yeah, this first issue was a lot of fun. The only little nitpick I kind of had is I felt like in this first issue a little bit that they jumped around a lot in time. Very similar to how they were with like Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman in their Absolute stuff. This seems to jump around very, very sporadic, it seemed like. But I guess that's the nature when it's, with the Flash, because he's so fast. I don't know. But that was kind of my nitpick. I mean, it wasn't 100% hard to follow the story, but it was something that I did notice that they jumped around quite a bit in this. I thought it was very ballsy, because I thought Barry Allen was not going to be in this. To put Barry Allen in this and basically kill him in the first issue. And they're like, we don't need you, Barry. I thought that was pretty crazy. And they left me on a cliffhanger where I wanted to continue to keep reading this. It was a lot of fun. I like it that they made Wally a teenager. I think it's a little different than what they've done. I guess maybe Bruce is kind of a young adult, and maybe Wonder Woman's an adult, and I think I wonder if Superman's maybe a couple years older than Wally, because in this, Wally is like 14 years old. So I thought that was pretty fun, and I really liked the fact that they didn't like go ahead and put him into the superhero role at this point. I like it that they were probably gonna have to work up to that, which that's one thing that I actually really did like about it, because at the end of it, he does get a suit, but will he wear it? Who knows? But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments of what you thought about this. I'm Otaku Mike, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace out, stay safe, go read some comic books.